To begin with, we live in a racist system. No surprise there, huh? It doesn't matter that we have a black president or that many people of color hold positions of power. The fact is, racism serves the foundation of capitalism. You know, what better way to keep wages down than to pit one race of workers against another? What better way to explain the lack of jobs or limited resources than to point the finger at blacks, Latinos, Asians, immigrants, or Native Americans? And to promote this racist ideology, corporate foundations pay lobbyists or politicians to maintain the system of racism by having them introduce racist bills and or policies. And it is the mega rich who fund racist organizations to mobilize scores of angry white folks into believing that the problem is darker-skinned people. And the corporate media, owned by billionaires, help promote this racist ideology to the public. Racism, including immigrant bashing, is increasing, as it usually happens in tougher economic times. It needs to be said that the attacks on other groups are also on the up. Women, queers, youths, poor, the homeless, and labor unions, and also environmentalists are blamed for all that is wrong, and as a result, faced undue attacks. Even as bigotry is on the rise, the fight back against it is also on the up and up, and it is workers of color who are leading the resistance. The economic outlook for working people, especially the younger generation, is on a downhill slide. Earlier in the year, economic political pundits kept promising that the US economy is on the recovery track. And if one is to believe Newsweek, the miracle of US capitalism has revitalized, rejuvenated, and innovated the economy. And despite these illusionary proclamations that there is a recovery, there is a shortage of good-paying long-term jobs, there is high unemployment, there is wage and benefit cuts. There is also skyrocketing housing, healthcare, and education costs. So most people aren't going to have an easy time in these economic times, and when they don't, far-right racist groups are doing all they can to blame people of color. And this point of view is given validity by existing news organizations, media coverage, and government policy. Oh, okay. And the reactionary right wing, as they're lining up their forces to spew out this racist ideology, a civil rights movement has been rejuvenated. People of color, immigrant workers, women, youth, and the queer community are building solidarity with other groups to build a massive fight back. As the economic times become tougher, the deciding factor for turning things around will be a militant, multiracial, united front. Historically, it has been women leaders at the wheel who have steered the way. Steve Hoffman and Fred Hyde listed some excellent examples of this in the pre-convention labor resolution. Steve will give a talk later on this afternoon on that. And I support Steve's and Fred's proposal to support immigrant workers. Their document mentions immigrant workers playing an important role in the Republic, Windows, and Doors struggle, where the company announced layoffs without severance pay after the bank, who had just received a cushy bailout from the US government, was refusing to give the company credit. So what did these workers do? They staged a militant sit-in, and they got the community support to back them up. And as a result, they won their back pay, and they also were able to keep their union jobs. Immigrant workers also played a significant role in demanding safer working conditions by calling for better OSHA enforcement. There's also Puerto Rican and Black and immigrant workers at a slaughterhouse in North Carolina joined together against management and won recognition for their union. Then there's also the fine example of the workers at Stella d'Oro, where comrades from New York City participated in a strike to support the workers, the mostly labor immigrant force there. Comrades in San Francisco and Seattle also participated in strikes that were led by janitor strikes that were led by immigrants. For this reason, the party should continue to fight for immigrant workers. Another example that I want to, highlight here is here's a hotel worker rising. It's the Asian and Latin American immigrant women in this campaign by Unite Here that led the way for winning higher wages, better benefits, and safe workloads at their hotels. But not only that, they also, the same people, the same workers here, the same women, called on adding protections for transgendered members and also an affirmative action program to increase the number of Black hotel workers. In these wavering days of capitalism, big business wants more efficient ways to exploit workers. And one method was proposed by George W. Bush back in 2004. He made a proposal for a guest worker bill and also increasing militarization of the border. And since then, both Republican and Democratic office holders have proposed one immigration bill after another, which is basically a guest worker bill and increased border militarization. There's McCain-Kennedy, there's Hagel-Martinez, and there's still some more, Gutierrez, Schumer, and the other, I forget, I'm going off on a tangent here. So far, though, none of these immigration bills have made it because there is strong opposition from the left, but there's also strong opposition from the right. It was really astounding that the right called McCain-Kennedy an amnesty bill, and it really isn't. No. Anyways, the brewing xenophobia concocted by anti-immigrant groups that are funded by the mega rich, like the Federation for American Immigration Reform, or FAIR, the Tea Party, and the Minutemen. You know, all of these groups, by the way, have white supremacist leaders. They got their start in white supremacist groups, and I don't care if Fox News are saying that they don't, they do. I'm just going to put that out right now. Culminated with the notorious Arizona bills, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm from Arizona. I think Steve already told you that, but when I heard about these Arizona bills, I was livid. I grew angrier when the governor Jan Brewer, ignoring the protests, signed it into law. But I was ecstatic when the students, the Arizona students there, staged a sit-in in Phoenix, and then there was the boycott that was been supported by entertainment and sports figures and labor groups. And this is wonderful because it's like a Sensenbrenner in 2006. It galvanized the immigrant rights movement again. However, this surge right now also has the potential to fizzle with compromises that are made by mainstream immigrant rights organizations who are promoting what they call comprehensive immigration reform, while at the same time supporting these federal immigration bills, which will make it easier to foster a system of one group of workers, I'll speak faster, no, one group of workers who are indentured, and at the same time, it increases militarization where immigrants are rounded up and deported. Let me tell you, there is no room for peaceful conciliation so that we can all get along, or like they say, or it's more correctly, so we can appease the Democrats or those who are in power. We can do what Black radicals have historically done when fighting for racial justice: no compromise. And remember, it was the Black civil rights leaders who led a successful boycott of Arizona after another racist governor rescinded the Martin Luther King holiday. It's great that Latino activists are doing the same. Recently, I met and talked with METRA members at a national METRA conference at University of Washington. I did a workshop with Lois, and Lois gave you a little bit of heads up with, about that conference yesterday. Students from Arizona talked about their actions of civil disobedience to oppose the racist and unjust SB 1070. This really jazzed up all the machistas, as did the recent militant actions to support the DREAM Act. I met some of these DREAM activists, and I did let them know that I don't support the DREAM Act, and that's the FSP's position on the DREAM Act. We don't support it. Though because it's a covert draft, is what it is, but I was impressed by the militant actions of the DREAM activist. The reason, when I step back, with their militant actions, I had to really start asking why we supported the DREAM Act. I mean, I know why, but then when I stepped back and looked at it, I looked at the class issue, and I realized the act would only benefit a few immigrant students, because most immigrant youths will not be able to afford the college. This act also would deny financial aid to them. Most will be forced into the military in order to obtain permanent status, and that's not right. That's not right. It's already sad that a lot of poor folks, including my niece, who sees that our only hope for leaving the barrio is to join the military. And we don't need that right now. So that's why when I told them this, they were still holding on, and I asked them why. It's because it's one sliver of hope for many to receive permanent status. And I said, with all the actions that they're doing, they deserve a whole lot better than the DREAM Act. Well, anyways, at the same time that the METRA conference was happening, I would have been there, but I had to be at the METRA conference to give a workshop with Lois. But I was really ecstatic and happy that we had comrades from LA there, Juisa, Muffy, and Luma. Let me tell you, they hightailed it to the desert in 100-degree weather, and that's really something. I don't know if you guys were in 90-degree weather. Try being in 100-degree weather and marching. So that tells you. And right now in Arizona, there is a call for Freedom Summer. But I don't care that the federal government followed this lawsuit. I hope that Freedom Summer still happens and that we all participate in it. Native American women leaders, I want to give a shout out to them. They're involved in this immigrant rights movement. Lois, she has a workshop. She can tell you more about it, but they're involved there in the Port Angeles fight, the Stop the Checkpoints. And also, they're still involved there to oppose the raids and the checkpoints there. The Native Americans are also in the lead in opposing the Arizona racist bills. And I think that's kind of interesting because these are the original inhabitants of Arizona, yet they can be profiled into, you don't belong here. That's really something. The increasing police state is a problem that everyone has to deal with, but it is having a devastating impact on Blacks and Latinos. I'll get it done. Blacks and Latinos. We already talked about the immigrant roundups, but there's also, I want to talk about a little bit about the police brutality and the police state and how that impacts us. A couple of days, 2 days after the Arizona bill was signed, I said, well, at least I live in Seattle. But then on the news, it comes out that this Latino youth was beat up by a Seattle police officer, and as he was getting beat up, the officer told him, I'm gonna kick the Mexican piss out of you. And then there was that one Mexican youth that was killed by the Border Patrol in Texas. And, I am horrified that a law enforcement official can be videotaped executing a young black man in front of hundreds of white witnesses and get a slap in the wrist. The dude should have gotten life in prison without parole. But look who is serving prison time. It's the poor, it's Black, it's Latino youths. One of the fastest growing populations are women, and at the federal level, it is immigrants. But the most impacted is young Black men. The government, it doesn't matter who is in office, has really done all it can to make sure that corporate benefactors make loads of money. That is their role.